Welcome to the Pat Imig Sports Network, broadcasting from Imig.ai Studios in St. Louis, Missouri. Now, your host, Pat Imig.
Welcome into the show, ladies and gentlemen. Pat Imig here on the Pat Imig Sports Network. It's football. We're heading into NFL Week 12. And to follow along on the journey on social media, look us up, Pat Imig Sports Network, at Get Pissin. That's G-E-T Pissin. Get Pissin. And on YouTube, it's also the same handle, Get Pissin, the Pat Imig Sports Network. So please subscribe, like, follow, comment, ask questions if you have questions. Maybe we'll answer it. Who knows? One question that would not have answered this way in week one would be the first place team of the NFC North after week 11, the Chicago Bears. They're 7-3. They're on top of the NFC North. And the most impactful man in the NFC North right now, Ben Johnson. The Bears are really all about Ben Johnson. The Bears already have 2 more wins in 2025 than all of 2024. Caleb Williams is improving by the week, and it's happening quickly. A tribute to his new head coach, Ben Johnson. I'm going to say Ben Johnson quite a bit. The Bears have a lot of improving to do still. Need to be more consistent, need to improve the defense, but that also means that they can improve and get better because these games and teams don't play in a vacuum, even though a lot of people who cover the game do live in one. Sorry about that. While the Bears are leading the division, the Detroit Lions are 6-4 and have sputtered on offense against good defenses this season. In their 4 losses, the Lions have scored a total of 63 points, including their 9-point effort last week against the Eagles. What's different about the Lions this year? No Ben Johnson. With no Ben Johnson, head coach Dan Campbell had to take over play calling duties from the new offensive coordinator, John Morton, because he's not like the former offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson. Yes, that Ben Johnson. For historical context, Campbell actually did this same thing to Johnson in 2021 before giving him back the keys to the offense, and the rest is history. But for now, let's look at the facts. The Lions, with Ben Johnson, went 15-3 in 2024. The Lions, without Ben Johnson, have already lost more games in 2025 than they did in all of 2024. It's not to say that the Bears will win the division or that the Lions won't, or vice versa, but it is clear that Ben Johnson's presence in Chicago is as evident and felt as his absence is in Detroit. He's Chicago's best BJ since Armstrong. Who doesn't love BJ Armstrong? Listen to and watch Ben Johnson's post-victory locker room speech. These are real-deal, old-school NFL treats.
Good, better, bad! Good, better, bad! Never let it rest! Never let it rest! It's good, gets better! It's good, gets better! Everybody gets better! Everybody gets better! Bears on 3, 1, 2, 3, Bears!
Ben Johnson is the culture change. I don't play for the Bears, and I'm not a Bears fan. But I would run into a brick wall for that guy after watching that. The Chicago Bears winning is good for football, and no matter how it ends, all I can say is Ben Johnson, ladies and gentlemen. Ben Johnson. Coming up next, the Pro Football Guru joins us as we get into NFL Week 12.
You are watching the Pat Imig Sports Network. Follow along at your favorite social media channel at GETPISN.
Get pissin'. Get. Go on and get. Some people ask ChatGPT their football questions. We ask the guru, Pro Football Guru Russell Baxter, on the Pat Imig Sports Network. Some people use ChatGPT. We use Pro Football Guru Russell Baxter here on the Pat Imig Sports Network. He brings 40 years covering the NFL, a couple decades at ESPN, working with Chris Berman, Tom Jackson, and the crew. Russell, last week we discussed Sam Darnold and his penchant for mistakes in big-time moments. It definitely happened over the weekend. Here is what his teammate and former Ram, Ernest Jones, had to say about all of that.
Man, Sam's had us in every game. So for him to sit there and say, oh, that's my fault. No, it's not. There was plays that defensively we could have made plays. There were opportunities where we could have got better stops. Yeah, I mean, like, it's football, man. And he's our quarterback. We got his back, and you got anything to say, quite frankly.
So I think he's talking to me, actually, or you. But don't kill the messenger. We're just reporting data and the news and the facts, right? So we're not going to spend a lot of time on the Seahawks, but tell me about what might be getting swept under the rug that people are forgetting about from Week 10, I guess.
Well, when you win, some of the negatives kind of get covered up. But if you go back and look at how they blew out the Cardinals in Week 10, when they were up big, Sam had a turnover deep in his own territory or their own territory, led to a touchdown, happened again. 3 turnovers. Sloppy football is sloppy football. What's the latest number I have? Patty's played 93 regular season games. He has 100 turnovers.
Wow. The Century Club.
Yes. But he's now played the Rams 3 times in roughly a year. They gave him a hard time at SoFi. I think he got sacked late in the game for a safety. In the playoff game, which got relocated to Arizona, he was sacked 9 times, had a fumble that was picked up and returned for a touchdown. And now you have 4 interceptions. If you look at the yardage totals in that game, the Rams offense did very, very little. And Seattle went up and down the field until they kind of shot themselves in the foot. And all that being said, the Rams punt late in the game. The Seahawks get the ball at the 1-yard line. They drive all the way into Rams territory. Jason Myers misses a 61-yard field goal. So they were right there. So we're not blaming. It's how he plays. And there have been other quarterbacks who Josh Allen has been throughout most of his career. Last year is now looking for an anomaly. What did you hear about the narrative about Josh Allen this week? Well, he had 3 rushing touchdowns and he had 3 passing touchdowns. Fantastic. He also threw 2 picks, and nobody mentioned that because they won the game.
Right. Which is a good segue. And we talked about his turnover this year compared to last year. You brought that up last week. So they will be facing a Houston Texans team that is still alive, that had, I guess, the comeback against the Jaguars is one of the more, I feel like, overlooked games, even though it's only been 2 weeks, just because it's the Texans and Jaguars, not, your New York teams. If that was a New York game, you probably hear a lot more about it still.
Right.
Having said all that, you called the Texans out. You not called them out, but you talked about this about 5 weeks ago when we were going through division winners, and you mentioned the Texans. You were still keeping an eye on them because of that defense. The defense still looks pretty rough and tough, and I'm willing to, if I was a gambling man, I'm not sure what the line is right this second, but I feel like the Texans are going to be a tough matchup for Josh Allen and the Bills, the way that the Bills are playing. And I think you pointed out, too, to me that defense is playing so poorly that maybe Josh Allen feels like he has to do more.
I don't think there's any question about that. I mean, they just won a 44-32 game. Okay. Before, they played the Chiefs, 28-21. They gave up 30 points to the Dolphins. They're not breaking any news here. Okay. The defense was the offseason priority for Brandon Beane and the organization. I believe they used their top 5 draft choices on defense. And there's been some injury issues as well. And, Ed Oliver has missed substantial time. But Tampa Bay fortunately had for the Bills last week, and what a fun game. No, don't get me wrong. I mean, they were down to their third string quarterback, third string running back, and he had a monster game against the Bills. So I bring up the Texans for the fact that A, they've won the division 2 years in a row. B, this is traditionally over the last couple of years not been a very strong division. But if you're going to pull off the comeback, and by the way, the Texans are the last 0-3 team to make the playoffs. They did that in 2018. And I think sometimes it's also forgotten. Think about this, Pat. Since 2011, the Texans have 8 division titles. 8. That's a hell of a total.
It really
Because
is.
they can't get past the divisional round. They've never played in the AFC Championship game. My point is, the Texans still have, I believe, 2 games with the Colts. So the opportunity is at least there. Okay. If they'd already split with the Colts or had gone 0-2 against the Colts, it's a different story. But sometimes it depends. It's like Carolina. Carolina now has as many wins as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Carolina and Tampa Bay play week 16 and week 18. There's at least you have the opportunity to do something. If you miss out on the opportunity, then you're screwed.
Yes, I would agree. And the Colts have coming off of a bye. They have a bye, and now they have a visit in Kansas City with the Chiefs, who are now 5-5. So they're both of those teams. I know that the Colts, have a comfortable record as far as being in front, but like you said, they have the 2 with the Texans still, and then this game with the Chiefs, a Chiefs team that's got to be desperate. What do you make of this?
Well, that Chiefs defense, and you and I talked about this after the Buffalo game, for as much talk as there was about Patrick Mahomes not getting pass protection, the Bills in those chunk plays was what really did the Chiefs in. Kansas City had a chance at the end, but didn't pull it out. Some of those long passes that Bo Nix were able to complete, especially late in the game, is what eventually did in the Chiefs again. So a team that's a little more reliant on defense in the last couple of years than they were during the first Super Bowl run, per se, even though that defense might have been the best that they had during this dynastic run of theirs and so on. Overall, because that defense got hot late in the season. The 2022 and 2000, probably the 23 from stem to stern, to use that expression, was probably their best defensive unit during this run. But now their offense is sporadic, and their defense is what I wouldn't call highly reliable. Okay, they're not necessarily getting the pass rush. Now, they're playing a team that has lost 2 road games to the Rams and the Steelers. I think there's still little memories of Daniel Jones and what happened to them in Pittsburgh.
Probably.
I think he threw a pick in the what turned out to be an overtime game against the Falcons overseas. Jonathan Taylor went absolutely bananas. Monster game. People would be foolish not to involve him in MVP discussions with the kind of monster year he's having. So similar to what James Cook was able to do against the Chiefs, could Jonathan Taylor do the same thing? So this is a monster game more for the Chiefs because they're already in third place. They've already lost to Denver and the Chargers, who are both off this week. I believe they have 4 of their losses are in the conference. And that's what you got to start looking at if you're not going to win the division. Okay, I know they lost to the Eagles, all right? But that Jacksonville loss on Monday night could be ultimately what winds up costing them big time. Okay,
Yeah.
So you got, with the way things are bunched up in the AFC. I remember we have an AFC this year where 11 weeks into the season, none of the 4 reigning division champions, is in first place. I mean, Kansas City's pass rush has been ordinary this year. I mean, really has
I
been
think
important.
I think that just playing so many games beyond the regular season, I think it's just taking its toll on guys like Chris Jones. I mean, they're not puppies anymore.
I would not rule that out whatsoever. Okay, I mean, there is a reason. There's a reason no team has won 3 Super Bowls in a row during the Super Bowl era. The longest championship run in the history of the National Football League is 3, and that's it. And that would be the 29-31 Packers, which I did not cover.
You didn't?
And no, I couldn't get a pass.
They didn't credential you?
And the 65-67 Packers, which the second of the second and third of those were the first 2 Super Bowls, but it was still 3 straight NFL titles. I mean, the Chiefs got as close as you could get last year by actually playing in that Super Bowl, but I mean, it was 34-0 before you could say, Taylor Swift.
Right. And I know how much you love her music. So talking about the Steelers earlier on the show, I talked about Ben Johnson and how impactful he's been for the Bears. So the Bears and Steelers play also in kind of an interesting matchup. I would just call this a pick 'em. I feel like both teams are a little inconsistent despite their winning records. Both teams have room for improvement. Not sure what the latest is with Aaron Rodgers as of this moment. So if he's not going, that obviously favors the Bears. But anything in particular stand out to you about either of these two teams right now at this moment?
Well, I mean, the Bears have had this, I don't want to say incredible knack, because we've seen other teams do it, like the Vikings did it a couple of years ago, and like the Chiefs did it this past season, winning these late close games. Minnesota went down the field and took the lead, and it wasn't necessarily Caleb Lewis. It was a huge kickoff return that set them up for that game-winning field goal. And game-winning field goals now don't have to come from 45 yards or 50 yards. They can come from 55 and 60 yards. Well,
that's why I thought Seattle was going to still win that one.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I mean, 61 in an indoor stadium.
Yeah, I did too, to be honest with you, when he got them all the way down here. So, and that's why it's not a total disaster for the Seahawks and Darnold and so on. He just has to clean up those miscues. The Rams had less than 300 yards of total offense on Sunday. But back to the Steelers-Bears game. The Bears defense is mediocre. The Steelers defense is unpredictable. Okay. They can get you 6 or 5 turnovers or, 5 sacks and still lay an egg. So,
and give up 5 touchdowns. Right.
And give up 5. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was only a matter of a couple of weeks, and it was the same quarterback for the Bengals. But the Bengals went up and down the field on them on a Thursday night. And then last week on Sunday, the Steelers defense scored more touchdowns than I think the Bengals offense. So try and figure this out. Good luck.
Bucks and Rams on Sunday night, also another entertaining game. I know what I have with the Bucks on offense due to the lack of good health, their injuries. Their defense, however, is kind of a concern. And you mentioned the Rams and how they were thwarted by Seattle last week, but I feel like the Rams match up pretty well with Tampa Bay to get back to normal. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Don't disagree with that at all, because what we've seen from the Bucs defense the last couple of weeks against New England and against Buffalo is, I mean, I know that the popular term is chunk plays.
Right.
These are
Greg Olson absolutely loves that phrase, chunk plays. I mean,
right.
I think when he orders a salad and he orders wings, he gets a side of chunk plays. Last game we'll get into before we take a break and then have a steel cage match between ChatGPT and the PFG. The Panthers and the 49ers, this is the fitting because they close out the week. We open the week with the Texans and the Bills, and I say that's fitting because about 7 weeks ago, your teams that you had on your radar that you weren't putting to bed just yet for the divisions, the Texans, of course, we talked about that already, and then the Panthers. So Bryce Young had himself a good football game, and then Brock Purdy healthy again. He looked great. This is actually going to be a pretty good game, I feel like. San Francisco's somehow they're I mean, they're regular season warriors under Shanahan, like you said. I mean, it's impressive what they've done given all the injuries.
Yeah, and hanging right in there. And the fact that they beat. Here's the thing to keep in mind with them. I know that they wound up splitting with the Rams, but they beat Seattle in Seattle. Okay, and they have now swept the Cardinals. So the interesting thing for the Niners, like on top of it, they only have one more divisional game left, which would be Seattle at home, obviously in Week 18. Seattle and the Rams have another back and forth. Okay, which I think is a Thursday night game in Seattle. I think in Week 16. So the NFL has done a great job uh, giving you little smatterings of divisional games throughout the year, and then saving a lot of them for the end of the year when they really, really count. Okay, so the decision they made to make all 16 games divisional games in the final week of the season, I thought was very, very, very smart move. And now that you have 7 teams go to the playoffs, and now we have seen, it's not that unusual to see 3 teams from the same division go to the playoffs like we do with the NFC North. I'm waiting for a 4 team. Okay. Remember a couple of years ago, the AFC North had 4 winning teams. 3 went to the playoffs and the Bengals sat home. So I don't know how they do it, but they just have a knack. And listen, they watch and have their own guess about who's going to be good and who's not necessarily going to be good. Listen, Thanksgiving right now is shaping up to be huge right now. Okay.
That's the Pro Football Guru Russell Baxter. We'll take a quick siesta, and we'll come back with an interesting story from Tua Tagovailoa. And, well, it's not really a story from him, but he answered a question that I thought was interesting, and it made me laugh thinking about it. So we'll share that with you, and then it's the ChatGPT battle versus the PFG.
You are watching the Pat Imig Sports Network. Follow along at your favorite social media channel at GETPISN.
Get pissing. Get. Go on and get.
I hate this team. I was born into this, and I'm not going to ever... I'm always a Jets fan, but, like, I hate this team.
That's what it's like to be a Jets fan. That was from a few weeks ago, but it really kind of applies to any game that the Jets lose. And I think it's funny to check the temperature of the fan bases. I know the Steelers fans have been really angry this year at times, but being a Jets fan has got to be tough. Being a Raiders fan has got to be tough. And you got to feel for both fan bases. So that leads into, you probably know this already, Russell, but this week marks the anniversary of the Heidi game. So for those that don't know, in 1968, I was looking at they were both 7-2. So this is like a marquee AFL matchup, right?
And would play in the AFL title game later in the year.
So the Jets are up 32-29 with a couple minutes to go against the Raiders, and NBC goes away from the game and plays the TV film Heidi. And people didn't know the end of the game results, and it turned out the Raiders scored 2 touchdowns and won 43-29, or 43-32, I'm sorry. So that makes me a little, I guess, humbles me, because when I am watching a game at a key moment and my streaming service buffers, at least they're not taking it to a made-for-TV movie. Do you remember this game?
I know the history of this game. That's really, I was 9 years old, and I really didn't start watching football until like 9. I always tell people the first Super Bowl I actually remember watching was Kansas City and Minnesota, which was Super Bowl 4, which would be the 69 season, so January of 1970. So, but I mean, the Heidi game is as legendary. If you were going to do a list of not the top 10 best games, but the top 10 most famous games, there's probably no question that would be on there. Something, like the snowplow game with the Patriots and the Dolphins in '82 when Mark Henderson came out and plowed a little patch. and so on. But we talked about that was the same year that the Raiders lost to the Jets in the AFL title game in Shea, and then the Jets went on and beat the Colts in Super Bowl III.
And that's your history in a minute. So right now we'll head into the fastest growing sports segment in America. And by fastest growing, I don't know what that means. We just made it up. It's the Pro Football Guru. It's the PFG versus Chat GPT. So today's topic, we have the top 5 Raiders players of all time, because Raiders fans need something to cheer for. So hopefully this will cheer them up.
Russ, the PFG versus Chat GPT.
So we'll go ahead and start with 5 actually this week, Russell. We'll go 5 through 1 because number 1 isn't the most obvious from both camps, really. So who do you have at number 5 on your list of the 5 greatest Raiders players of all time?
I have often said that when I was watching football when I was younger, there were 2 quarterbacks that you didn't turn off the TV until the clock said 0, 0, 0. Both are in the Hall of Fame. One is Cowboys star Roger Staubach, and the other is the Snake, Kenny Stabler from the Raiders, who went on and played for some other teams. Won a Super Bowl 11. Great Raider teams that, unfortunately for them, were in the same conference as the Dolphins and the Steelers, and lost their share of AFC title games and AFL title games, and great talent, and the great heyday of the Raiders organization for the most part. But Stabler was very clutch, involved in the Sea of Hands, which is the 74 divisional playoffs against the Dolphins, where he threw a pass falling down and Clarence Davis caught it in the end zone. They beat the Dolphins. The ghost to the post is the long pass to Dave Casper over the shoulder, and they beat the Colts in the divisional playoffs in Baltimore in overtime. Just a lot of great and here's one that I know people don't remember. The Immaculate Reception was obviously caught by Franco Harris off the deflection, and the Steelers won the playoff game. The Raiders' only touchdown came on I think it was a 30-yard run by Ken Stabler late in the game.
That's why he's the Snake.
Yes,
I like finding old photos from that era, and there's like a couple of him playing, like smoking cigarettes on the sideline and just playing pool and smoking cigarettes. That just cracks me up. There was the Vikings coach too, Bud Grant. Didn't Bud Grant smoke cigarettes on the sideline?
I don't know, but there's a picture of Len Dawson sitting in the locker room with a cigarette. The Chiefs quarterback and so on. I think the old gag with
that's right.
With Kenny Stabler was he would read the playbook by the light of the jukebox.
For the record, ChatGPT has the Snake Kenny Stabler at number 4.
Okay.
So at number 5, they have the Hall of Fame guard Gene Upshaw.
Okay, I can't.
So you're in at least you're okay with that. So who do you have at number 4?
Well, 4 is, I think, a man whose reputation wasn't what he was as a player, although he was involved in one of the saddest incidences in league history, and that was in a preseason game in '78, hitting Darryl Stingley of the Patriots, who wound up paralyzed. But my number 4 Raider, the toughness of Jack Tatum, the safety. I think he's a Hall of Fame player. I don't know if he'll ever get in. He used to be paired in the secondary with a guy named George Atkinson. George, if you thought Tatum was dirty, George Atkinson was just go and YouTube it. Okay. There were some things, clothesline people. He hit Lynn Swan in the back of the helmet with a closed fist and knocked him out cold. That Steelers Raiders rivalry of the '70s was unbelievable. But if you want to see something, what Jack Tatum was all about, I think it was his final year with the Raiders, because eventually he got traded to the Oilers. at the Astrodome against Earl Campbell and the Oilers. He comes up and plants one right under Earl Campbell's chin. And Tatum went down on his butt. And Earl still managed to get in the end zone. YouTube that and Google that and tell you that doesn't get you ready for football. I thought Jack Tatum really symbolizes some of like this. I will say this is not the greatest time for the Raider organization. But they have a lot of guys in the Hall of Fame, and rightfully so. So trying to do top 5 for them is tough.
Number 3.
This is a personal favorite for mine because I thought he epitomized what the Raiders were on offense, and that's Cliff Branch, who waited an awful long time to get into the Hall of Fame, but he was also part of all 3 of their Super Bowl title teams. Okay. Fred Biletnikoff was the Super Bowl MVP in Super Bowl 11. And he had the biggest role there. It was really a running game, Clarence Davis, when they beat the Vikings. But Cliff Branch scored touchdowns in Super Bowl 15 with Plunkett and Super Bowl 18 with Plunkett. Deep threat, one of the great deep threats of all time. Great playoff numbers. When Al Davis was wanting to throw the ball downfield, this was the guy. Okay. Casper did the underneath stuff. Biletnikoff, the ultimate possession receiver, but Cliff Branch was instant offense. And there's a number of players that have caught 99-yard touchdown passes. He happens to be one of them against the Redskins at RFK in 1983, which ironically they would face each other again in Super Bowl 18. Cliff Branch, I think, waited a little too long to get in the Hall of Fame. I had an opportunity to meet him at the Pro Bowl last year. Very gracious, very kind man. Not bitter about not getting in or anything like that. I just said to him, I think you should be in the Hall of Fame. And he finally got in. And again, there's some great pictures out there, Pat, of him going into the end zone in Oakland. And there's somebody has this big giant sign that says speed kills. And he killed a lot. He made a lot of great cornerbacks look slow.
So ChatGPT agrees that a receiver is at number 3, but it has Fred Biletnikoff at number 3.
Super Bowl 11 MVP. I mean, you can't argue with that. Another Hall of Famer.
Number 2. This is where it gets dicey.
One of the all-time great touchdown scorers of all time. Didn't finish his career with the Raiders. Instant sensation. Super Bowl MVP in his second year when they beat the Redskins. One of the great runs in NFL history when he started to the left against Washington, reversed his field and just went untouched in a 74-yard touchdown, which is the second longest touchdown run in Super Bowl history. Marcus Allen, dynamic runner, former Heisman Trophy winner, dynamic receiver, 1985 NFL MVP. Eventually they paired him with Bo Jackson, but he really knew his way into the end zone. And I got a chance to talk to Marcus during Hall of Fame. We actually specifically at Sterling Sharp's Hall of Fame party, Marcus was there. So was able to chat, regular chat, not chat GPT. Okay. It was
right.
Such a regular chat between Marcus and I. So dynamite football player. Hard to leave him off. He's really the most modern player that I have on this list.
ChatGPT has Marcus Allen at number 1.
Okay. We're not that, me and GPT, we're not that far off, I don't think. Although I get the feeling we might be far off on the next one. So,
who do you have at number 1, your greatest Raider of all time?
We now see players who wear 0 since they changed the rules about uniform numbers. There were 2 prominent players who wore 00. One was Kenny Burrow, who was a great receiver for the Houston Oilers. I think began his career with the Saints. But when you think of 00 and you make the case of maybe the greatest center in the history of the NFL, he's Mr. Raider, and that's Jim Otto, who actually, if you think about it, he has 2 zeros in his last name, OTT.
Right.
So, they're O's. I know they're not 0, but work with me here. So, part of some of the great offensive lines in NFL history. a warrior. Guy didn't miss games. I mean, he was he was blood and guts. He was, just the passion he had for football, and it took the toll on his body. I mean, there's so many stories about him and so on, and just a phenomenal player. But when I think of the symbolism of the Raiders, other than Al Davis, which is, it's kind of, but we're talking players here. Okay. Jim Otto to me symbolizes the Oakland Raiders. I know that they've been the Vegas Raiders. I know they've been the Los Angeles Raiders, but Jim Otto is Mr. Raider in my mind.
So
I think I can guess number one. Can I guess?
Yes.
I think they put Charles Woodson.
No, they did not. So they had Marcus Allen at 1, but at number 2 is where they did not have Jim Otto on the remaining number. They actually had Howie Long.
Okay. All right. See, I'm surprised. If I was going to change one of mine, Art Shell would have been one to put on there too. But it's hard. It's almost hard to put Art Shell without Gene Upshaw. Okay, because they were next door to each other, and just blew people's doors off.
To recap, we have Gene Upshaw, Kenny the Snake Stabler, Fred Biletnikoff, Howie Long, and Marcus Allen as the ChatGPT top 5, while you have at number 5, what was your 5th again?
I have Kenny Stabler, I have Jack Tatum, I have Cliff Branch, Marcus Allen, and Jim Otto.
So, Zach, who do you think won this fight?
I'm kind of surprised that you didn't. I mean, I'm not surprised, but the fact you don't have Howie Long in your list was interesting to me.
Oh, it's hard to do a Raiders. Listen, if you think the Raiders top 5 is hard to do, what do you do the Steelers top 5 or the Packers?
Right.
I don't. That's why I don't want your job.
Yeah.
That's why I tune into the show.
He's doing the heavy lifting. He's doing the Lord's work.
Right.
So that is the Pro Football Guru. As we wrap things up, we hope that the Raiders fans enjoyed themselves. The dog is behind me. She's ready to go because she hears the music, even though we're not playing any right now. I did mention that a little blurb about Tua Tagovailoa. So he was asked where he would like to play his next game if he were to play on foreign soil again. He said Jerusalem. And I want to see this happen because I want to see a Hard Knocks documentary following Mike McDaniel touring the Holy Land. That's what I want. And maybe Stephen Ross will make Netanyahu a celebrity owner. No?
Well, I mean, listen. I mean, we've had the Holy Roller. We've had the Immaculate Reception. We've had the Hail Mary.
Right.
So why not Jerusalem?
I agree.
And who do you bring? And who do you bring back for that game? You bring back tight end Leonard Pope. You bring back Priest Holmes. Any Cardinal. That's exactly right. And they're not a very good team. They're dire need of offensive and defensive linemen. I can tell you that. A-Chain, thank goodness for A-Chain, because he just runs past his offensive lineman, frankly. He's really their offense. But I will say this, watching that game last week against Washington, some of that play calling down near the goal line by McDaniel was
so that fourth down call, I actually didn't have a problem with going for it. I had a problem with the call itself.
No, that's my point. It had nothing going for it.
Because there was a lot of people that were like, why would you not kick the field goal? And it's like, well, then you're making it a field goal game. And, the other team, the Commanders, get the ball at the 25 at the least if they just, get a touchback. And they got to go 2 first downs, 3 first downs, and they can kick it. Because you can now kick 60-yarders. So, yeah, we're on the same page on that one. I thought it was a good. No, also, you're 2-7 at the time, or 3-7, whatever it is. Right. go for the win, which is what Brian Dable did not do the week before when they had a chance to go for a touchdown at 4th and goal. So
you have no push from your offensive line, and all of a sudden you're going to think that you're going to plow your way into. They don't have a tush or a push. Okay?
No, they don't.
They are not a very good. They're not great at tackle, and maybe even worse on the interior. So, and they're like that on defense too. I mean, that's why people were able to run on them.
That's the Pro Football Guru, Russell Baxter. Russell, it's always fun to chat, and we will talk next week. Enjoy NFL Week 12.
Absolutely.
Thanks for watching the Pat Imig Sports Network, powered by Imig.ai. For exclusive sports content and clips you can't find anywhere else, follow along on social media at Get Pissin'.
Every single night, from the tip off to the touchdown, I break it down. Sports talk royalty, I wear the crown. Dynasties rise, legacies never fall. Every win got a story, I tell it all. Last minute buzzer beaters, ice in the vein. Post game speeches and champagne rain. From the World Cup heat to the Super Bowl lights, calling plays in the zone. Open up your eyes, Imig Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night. Pat Imig Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night. Talking MVPs, yeah, I see the vision. Grinding for the chip, this is more than a mission. Trade talks, headlines, locker room vibes. Breaking news quicker than a 40-yard time guide. Eyes on the court, hard in the ring. Every athlete's journey, I let that sing. Olympic gold to college ball pride. If it's clutch, I got it covered worldwide. Pat Imig Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night. Pat Imig Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night. Lights on, game on, no cap when the game's strong. Underdogs to the Hall of Fame, every win got a name. Pat Imig Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night. Pat Imig Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night.